to the English edition of Correo TV. I am Isabel Inclán, the editor-in-chief of Correo Canadiense newspaper. Today, we will talk about a special program for newcomer journalists and media professionals. This is the Bridge to Employment in Media and Communication, which is part of the Mennonite New Life Center. This is a postgraduate bridging program for media, marketing, and communication newcomer professionals. This program has a partnership with Ryerson University. It helps newcomers to adapt and find work in the Canadian media industry. To talk about this program, I welcome today to Correo TV Richard Landau, who is a media instructor in the program. He has a strong background in communication and journalism. Welcome to Correo TV, Richard.
Hello, Isabel. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And first of all, can you tell us about how difficult it is for a newcomer journalist or media professional to work in the media industry in Canada?
You know, I guess the essential thing is to come into the situation and be familiar with a number of things. We try to familiarize all of our participants with the law governing communication, law governing media, the institutions that oversee communication, for example, the CRTC. We also familiarize them with the history of Canadian journalism, Canadian communication, and in some degrees marketing. All of this information is valuable to give them a footing. It is our hope that when someone completes this program and they get hired and we help them find careers, that they walk into a newsroom or they walk into a PR firm or a communications job, and they are as conversant with the issues and with Canadian history in the field as are people who've grown up here. Our job is to make them thoroughly capable of translating their skills, their knowledge, into a Canadian milieu, a Canadian setting.
Great. And Richard, can you mention something about the main barriers that the newcomer journalists face when they arrive to Canada? We are talking about the language, we are talking about the CP style. What can you tell us about that problem?
Well, there's a couple of major barriers. One of the more recent ones is the fact that, quite frankly, media is undergoing a transformation, where typically you could get a job in a newsroom or in an organization that did news or communications organization. Because of two things, because of the expansion and enhancement of digital media, what we're doing right now, the skill sets have changed, and newsrooms are downsizing. Let's be very frank. And news is going from being national, international in many cases to the jobs are appearing in what is called hyper-local news. So we talk to our students about where the opportunities are. That's changed. That's a big challenge. Let's not also forget the fact that this pandemic has changed the media equation. Very often, with the exception of publicly funded media, which are few, with the exception of publicly funded media, most of us earn our living by delivering viewers, eyeballs, listeners, to advertisers. That model is severely challenged right now, and in many cases, the way money is being made is through subscription, where you join something, you join a podcast or whatever, and the massive audiences we used to expect from big AM radio stations, or even big FM radio stations, or TV newscasts, is not what it was. The numbers are down. So a lot of people are getting their news online, etc. As journalists, we have to learn, number one, where the new job opportunities are. As communicators, we also have to know how to use these new media in ways that are useful and can convey our stories and are helpful to us. So, as you know, the landscape changes day to day. Instagram, when it popped up, came out of virtually nowhere. So, new media that we use, they come and they go very quickly. And we educate our participants to be on top of what is coming. 3 years ago, there were a handful of, well, not a handful, but there weren't a lot of podcasts. Today, there's a proliferation of podcasts. And part of what we discuss with our participants is, how do you stand out above all the noise of all the podcasts screaming for attention?
Great. And Richard, about this Bridge to Employment in Media and Communication program for the newcomer journalists and media professionals, what do they learn? Can you share with Correo TV some experience about from you as a teacher with those journalists coming from Latin America, from Pakistan, from India, and how do you see them, how to bridge them to the Canadian journalist style?
First of all, they're extremely eager. I teach in other colleges, and I can tell you that I've taught in other colleges, that the level of participation, of being on time and participating, is through the roof. Our participants are thoroughly engaged. To answer your question more directly, the kinds of things that will benefit them, that they need, where they need to grow, is in understanding very often things like idiom, milieu, how Canadians regard things. You know, as Canadians, we have a kind of a self-effacing attitude. We're not like some of our neighbors who are cheerleading for themselves. They learn about the kind of humility that Canadians approach things with. Very often, it's not just the hard skills. It's not just reporting, spelling. It's not just communicating clearly. Very often, it's things like how Canadians communicate with each other, the idiom, the things we say. But there is also, I mean, we do indeed teach such skills as, you know, once upon a time, for example, you could send a news release attached to your email to just about anybody. And why that doesn't work anymore. We teach why that's probably not the best way to get something out now. You know, because a lot of organizations, if they see an attachment coming through from someone they don't know, the email goes to spam or it gets deleted before it even comes through the domain. So we instruct our participants on the current things that are useful to them, both in hard skills and in cultural milieu.
Okay, Richard, and let's talk about the next group, the next cohort program for this part of this excellent program. And I know the information session is going to be on April 13 and
Correct.
April 27. And the idea is to start the new cohort, the number 6, on May. And what are the requirements for this program? What they need to do?
Well, we interview each potential participant individually. And we put them through a rigorous series of testing, and they have to go for some other tests to determine language capability, skills, etc. So we look at that. We present them with situations sometimes, like if this happens, how would you respond? How will you do this? That's part of what we do. When they come into the program, they have some core curriculum, things like history of Canadian milieu history. I teach a course on what we call the Ontario media landscape, and that is the background for newspapers, television, and radio in Canada, as well as a little bit of digital media at that point. They get more digital media later on. I'll go into a bit of the program if you like. So in addition to that, then the other parts of the program, other than the media landscape, which teaches them law and politics around communication, they learn where the job sites are. They learn about the labor unions that govern broadcasting and communications in Canada. They also cover off such subjects as graphic design and art, web design, podcasts, audio skills, producing for radio, as well as photography and videography. So we go into all areas of communication. So what we hope will happen is when a participant leaves in our program, they will be equipped to work in many different ways. It's said today of the communicator and the journalist that you can't just write stories anymore. You have to know how to talk to a camera like we're doing right now. You have to know how to produce radio or audio and video as well. If you are to be a totally effective communicator, the more tools you have, the more tools in your belt, the better off you'll be. Our program endeavors to give each participant a multiplicity of tools and adaptability. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and this, let's say that this is important that with the partnership with Ryerson University, those newcomer journalists are allowed to take some classes, some practice at Ryerson University.
Ryerson's journalism program and its communications programs are known worldwide. I say that sincerely. It's the truth. Ryerson's programs are exceptional. And so having that as doing this under the auspices of Ryerson and having the availability of Ryerson people to work with us makes the program very attractive, I would imagine, to anyone who's looking to adapt. And let's face it, some of our people are coming from different kinds of situations. They may be coming from nations where the notion of freedom of the press is rather unusual, that there may be no freedom of the press, that they would be afraid to ask a probing question, perhaps, because of the cultural milieu they came from. So we make it a point to ground them in what is legit in Canada, and Ryerson's are great at that.
Great, and we are talking about this program is like a 6-month full compromise program for these new journalists, and they have to pay something or no, it's free program?
There is a fee, and there are fees associated. There's also methods for allowances for fees and bursaries, etc. Program. Most of them come to the program and recognize its sheer value. It is indeed 6 months, and it is a very, I can tell you because I wrote the curriculum, it's a very dense curriculum. We cover things that might surprise a lot of people, because many of our graduates go on to becoming entrepreneurs, because we also are very big on ideas, new things you can do. Some of our graduates have gone on to like different kinds of electronic web-based new media enterprises that arise from taking the course and discussing the ideas in the course. One of the things we're always eager to do is discuss the ideas and look at where the possibilities might exist. When I mentioned hyper-local media to you before, you know that the federal government has put $600 million aside for new digital expressions of news coverage and media. We talked to the students about that in great depth and how one could use those funds and when one could apply for those funds, if possible, to start up a venture. And what that means, the fact that people are turning to new media more than they've ever done before. So for example, one morning I awoke to the sound of helicopters flying near my building. And I thought, I wonder what that is. 6 o'clock in the morning. I went immediately to Twitter and said helicopters, and I named my town, and it came back with exactly, well, there's been a huge traffic accident on the 400 series highway. And so it gave me that, we wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. We would have waited and waited for a local radio station perhaps to cover it. So the way people are getting their information is different. We're helping our graduates prepare for that.
Okay, if you are a newcomer journalist or media professional, this invitation is for you to join the Bridge to Employment in Media and Communication program, and the information session to know more about that program is going to be on April 13 and April 27, and you will have all the information about this program. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Richard Landau, for this information, for this invitation for the newcomer journalists.
Isabel, it has been my pleasure, and I really look forward to the next cohort. It will be our 6th cohort, and it's always an exciting time when you get to meet and hear the aspirations of the incoming participants. Thank you.
Okay, and if you have you need more information, just call 647-812-1332. Again, 647-812-1332, or send an email at BEMC at mnlct.org, and you will see the information here. Richard Landau, it was a pleasure to having you here at Correo TV. Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.